Hey guys, what's up? Today I'll be ranking the entire Tales of series on this tier list. Now, a long time ago, I made a top 10 on the best Tales of, that was like a year and a half ago, but now I'll be ranking all of them, all the main titles. There won't be games like Tales of Rebirth, or the real Tales of Destiny 2, or Tales of Fantasia and Erick Dungeon, and some spin offs because some of these spin-offs and some of these main games were never released outside of Japan, and they're not even fully fan translated, so there's no way for me to play them and fully understand them, right? That's why those games won't be on this list, but every single North American release, plus some of the other games that did get a fan translation, are gonna be here. The S means the game is a total masterpiece. A means the game is excellent. B means the game is great. C means the game is good, decent, and D means the game is mediocre, just full of problems. Yeah, you get the idea. Alright, with that out of the way, let's begin. I'm gonna start here with Tales of Vesperia. Vesperia, whatever. That's a game that I beat twice on the Xbox 360. Yeah, that's how much I liked it. However, I haven't played the definitive version that came out a couple of years ago, and I think it's just as good. I think it's a remake, or rather like an enhanced port of the PlayStation 3 version that remained in Japan. See, we only got the Xbox 360 version for some weird ass reason. That's weird, isn't it? But anyway, Tales of Vesperia, it's a very good game. It has everything you need and want from a Tales of game. That's why this game is so beloved by people. To me, it's not exactly a masterpiece, but it's a very good game, excellent game. It goes to A tier for me. Tales of Graces F, originally released on the Nintendo Wii. With that version, we never got it. Instead, we got the enhanced port, the better version, the definitive version, the one you should play, not the Wii version, known as Tales of Graces F on the PlayStation 3. That is a very good game. I love this game to pieces. Excellent game, criminally underrated. Hard to get into because the battle system is just highly technical. It's not just your usual hack and slash. It doesn't play like most of the other Tales of games. So it's a very good game. I love it to pieces. One of the best character development in the entire series because you start with the characters as kids, then as teens, then as adults. It's a beautiful game, man, and one of the longest in the series. Also an A tier for me. Tales of Hearts, another very good game. Originally released on the Nintendo DS, but we only got the remake, which is the better version, far better version, on the PS Vita. That's so cool because it plays very good. The interface, the controls are great here. The battle system is one of the best in the series, in my opinion. However, I think the story and the characters are a little bit generic for my taste most of the time. I mean, there's good character development here, but it's just not as good as the others, in my opinion. So Tales of Hearts goes to the B tier. Tales of Destiny on the PlayStation. That is a game that, it's a good game. I enjoyed it. I never finished it because I just couldn't take it anymore. The encounter rate here is very high. It's one of those games where its puzzles require you to go back and forth between certain areas to find the key to unlock this door, then to get this other key to unlock this other door, and in between you're getting a hell of a lot of random encounters. That killed the game for me. It's still a good game, but I'm gonna have to rank it on the C tier. Yeah, Tales of Eternity, however, did everything better. I mean, the encounter rate is not that high, the battle system is better, the navigation and the puzzles themselves are not that hard as they were in Destiny. However, I played and enjoyed the heck out of the PSP version, which is like a remake and slash enhanced port, and I think it's a great game, in my opinion. Also, it's a little bit full of problems, and partially the story and characters are, again, a little bit too generic for my taste, so I'm gonna rank this on the B tier. Still a great game though. Tales of Systeria on the PlayStation 3 and 4 and PC. I know, it's the black sheep of the family. You don't need me to talk about this game because I recently covered it and I explained why people hate it and why I might disagree with some areas. I think it deserves the hate a little bit because the criticism is legit, but it's also a game that I enjoyed and I actually beat. But will I ever beat it again? I don't think so. It's just some areas are very generic. Yeah, it's an okay game though. It's a good game. I liked it. I think it gets more hatred than what it probably deserves, but it's a C tier for me. Next up is Tales of Symphonia 1 and 2. Now the first Tales of Symphonia, that's a personal favorite to a lot of people. It was the one that popularized the series. A lot of you hold this game in really high regard, but that's because it's one of your personal favorites. I don't think it's one of the best in this series, not for me in my opinion, but I think it's a very good game, a great game. I just don't think it's A tier or S tier because it suffers the same problems like Hearts and Eternia for my taste. I think the story and characters can be a little bit too cliche and generic for my taste, but that's just me. Everything else, it's a great game. So another B tier for me. The sequel, I've always defended the sequel. I still believe it's better in almost everything than Symphonia One. It's just, it has a sort of like an unlikable main character, but I never had a problem with that. I think Emil gets a lot more hatred than what he probably deserves, and I think it has a better battle system. At the very least, it's a better battle system than the first Symphonia. My opinion, though. Also a B tier, however. I don't think it's that far superior to Symphonia 1 for me enough to put it on the A tier, but it's also a very good game, a great game in my opinion. Now, Tales of Systeria 1 and 2 are, in my opinion, a masterpiece. I love this game to pieces. Tales of Systeria 1, it's a very short game. You can beat this game in like 20 to 25 hours without the side quest, the side content, of course. But this game, just like Vesperia, it did everything right and much better than Vesperia, in my opinion. I think it's just the story, the characters, the visuals, the graphics, the battle system, which I think it's the best in the entire series. The character progression, character development, the skits, the music, everything in this game is just perfect. This is for me a perfect Tales of game. So yep, S tier for me. Just like its sequel. The sequel is also an S tier for me. I think the battle system is just as great. Everything else, well, if we're gonna compare both games, I think, well, the second one is longer. It should take you around 30 hours to beat the entire game without the side content. However, it's a game that a lot of people had trouble with because the game forces you to do some side quests at the beginning and beat some of the dangerous monsters. I love that, but I guess it turned down a lot of people. And it also has a darker story and some plot twists here and there that are very heartbreaking. It's still another masterpiece in my opinion. Tales of Fantasia, as you see here, I have both versions, both the Game Boy Advance version and the PlayStation 1 version. I'm not doing that for any of the other Tales games, even though most of these have 2 versions or 3 versions. I'm making an exception for this one because of 2 things. One, because the one that I played for the first time and beat was the PlayStation fan translated version. And second, because the only version we got in North America was the Game Boy Advance version, which is kind of bad. Honestly, everything in the Game Boy Advance version is good, but the battle system is total trash. I mean, it plays like in slow motion, like it lags a lot. Imagine an action RPG in slow motion, that's just bad, man. So, the Game Boy Advance version goes to D tier for me. It's still playable, but it's not an enjoyable game in my opinion. However, the PlayStation version, I think it's the best port. Just like the Super Nintendo version, it's also fully translated. There's also a PSP version. I don't think that one's fully translated. I don't know, and I haven't played it. But the one I played and beat and love is the PlayStation version, which, just out of nostalgia, I'm gonna rank it on the A tier. I think it's a little bit an outdated game. It could use a very well done remake, but it's one of the first Tales of games that I played and absolutely fell in love with. I love everything about Tales of Fantasia, man. That's why it's so high on this tier. Tales of Berseria is another masterpiece. I love this game to pieces. When I started making top 10s in English, videos in English, a lot of people were saying, notice that I was a huge big Tales of fan, and everybody was saying, play the game, you're gonna love it, you like dark stuff, psychological and revenge stories, you love that stuff, you're gonna love this game. And I was like, okay. I stayed away from it a little bit because I didn't like the sexualization of the main character, Velvet, but then once I played it, oh my god, I couldn't leave the controller aside, I couldn't put it aside, I love the game to pieces. It can be a little bit hard to get into because of the battle system, but not as hard to get into as Systeria or hell, even Graces. Berseria also did everything right, and just the story and some of the characters, they totally convinced me, man. Another masterpiece, another S tier for me. Tales of the Abyss, another very good game, another great game. This goes straight to the A tier for me. The only problem with this game is the main character and how the relationship between this character, Luke, and the other characters are a little bit tedious and kind of generic, and I was like, overall, I had a hard time getting into this game because of these characters and because of these relationships. Other than that, gameplay, navigation, encounter rate, the battle system is fantastic here. Everything is great. It's a great game. It's not exactly a masterpiece in my opinion, but it's a great game nonetheless. Legendia is my personal favorite Tales of all time. It was the very first Tales of I ever played, so just like what Symphonia means to a lot of you people, Legendia means a hell of a lot to me. It's a game that doesn't deserve the hate. Just because it wasn't developed by the main Namco Tales studio, some of the studio did work on this game, but the main people were other people. That's your reason for hating? Come on. If you hate the story, okay. A lot of people hate Symphonia story, a lot of people hate Tales of the Abyss story, or even Berseria story. It's just a matter of opinion. So it gets a lot of hate, undeserved hate in my opinion, because it has one of the best stories, and it has the absolute best character development in the entire series, because there's like extra episodes at the end of the game dedicated to each one of these characters, and it's so goddamn good. Very good game, beautiful music, beautiful artwork, and the battle system, I know it feels more like a beat 'em up than a hack and slash because it's totally in 2D, but come on, Fantasia was also in 2D, Destiny as well, Eternia as well, and I rarely see people bitching about those games. I'm sorry, but your argument is invalid in my opinion. Legendia is a masterpiece, my favorite in the entire series and the best. You've noticed here I have Tales of the Tempest and Tales of Innocence, alright? These two games were never released outside of Japan, exclusive to the Nintendo DS, well, except Innocence, but these two games are fully fan translated and they're fully playable on your own on an emulator or on your R4. That's how I play them, and well, I beat Tales of the Tempest. It's a very short game. It has sort of like a controversial story because it did very poorly in Japan. People hated the game in Japan, the Tales of fans, and it was released and advertised as a main title. But once the developers found out it did very poorly, they were like, oh, what do we do? It's a spin-off. So they told the world, yeah, no, it's actually a spin-off. Come on. Gets a lot of undeserved hatred as well, but I guess it's a very short game and the battle system is not that great. But it's still fully playable and enjoyable, so this goes to C tier. Innocence, this is the version I played because it's fully fan translated, and oh my god, it's full of problems. I think it has an amazing battle system. It's got a very good battle system, but the story and characters, some of them are likable, some others are not. And then the encounter rate, I mean, it's not random encounters, you can see the enemies, but it's so hard to avoid them. You get into a lot of shit ton of battles here, man, and it's just, mind blowing. I never beat this game. I rage quit in this game and I was like, oh my god, I'm so done. Just as tiresome as Tales of Destiny. Still a good game, decent, playable, enjoyable, but it's another C tier for me. Last but not least, the spin-off on the PSP. It's a crossover, another action RPG, crossover between all the Tales games. It has characters from a lot of these games, and well, it's a fan service game. You really need to enjoy and love the Tales series to enjoy that game. Otherwise, it's kind of generic and kind of boring because I think the development was a little bit lazy in some areas. I mean, it's very repetitive, and the battle system is okay, but it also feels like very clunky for some reason. I don't know, I like the game, I got stuck in the final boss, but I made it all the way through the end, huh? Anyway, another C tier for me. Good game, decent, playable, enjoyable, but you gotta be a fan of the Tales of series to properly enjoy it. Anyway, this was my ranking of the entire series, the ones that are fully playable and readable and understandable. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share it with your friends. See you next time!